Hello and welcome to Onesies, a podcast discussing one-season wonders and not so wonderful TV shows. My name's Andrew.
My name's Emily.
And we are discussing episodes 4 through 6 of 1989's Free Spirit, an ABC sitcom starring Corinne Bohrer, Frank Luz, Alyson Hannigan.
Perfect.
What's the kid's name? Like Egon Miller or something?
It's Eden Gross.
Eden Gross. Okay.
And Paul Schur. Don't forget Paul.
And Paul Schur. Yes. Don't forget Paul the pig. Sorry. No, wait. No, just his character as far as we know. Just his character. So yes, we're going to be jumping in on the next 4 episodes or 3 episodes. And I expect some spirited discussion.
Some free-spirited discussion, huh?
Free-spirited discussion. Starting with episode 4, which is...
Episode 4, I wrote down Love Zap, but apparently the actual title of it is Too Much of a Good Thing. Older brother Rob, Paul Schur, is infatuated with a girl whose name I don't remember right now. And Winnie puts a love spell on her to soften the rejection, apparently. But she gets, it goes wrong when she gets distracted by a young man trying to remember his locker combination. And the spell stays for too long, which leaves her annoyingly in love with Rob, to the annoyance of everyone, and puts the high school's big football game in jeopardy. So, Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Well, let's so we're going to stick to the 3 items that we're going to work through. We each bring 3 points and work through the 6. So I will start very I won't address the main thing, but we're going to have to talk about the guest stars, because the high school is populated with some guest stars of note. So that's one thing. Another thing to talk about is it's kind of hard because all I've got on here is things like, oh, wait, no, there's a fat joke. There's that. I can't forget the fat joke. Mullets are sort of in with guest stars, but I don't know. We're getting into where all my notes just say brainwashing is good. So,
so I had a couple notes too.
Wait, hold on. My other one's going to be wrist strength.
Strength. Oh, I missed that. Great.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have a not tender moment that I'd like to discuss because it comes into play when Rob is making his move. Some antiquated phrases that they use. Well, one in particular that I think is great. And I have a great story about one of the guest stars that maybe isn't as special as the ones that you're mentioning. The ex-boyfriend of said female guest star who I guess I should figure out what her name is. So those are my 3. So like I said, Rob has a crush on a girl, and apparently she spit on him the first time that he tried to ask her out.
That is what they say. Yes.
I don't know why you would want to continue down that road, but I've never been a 16-year-old boy, so I can't explain these things.
You've also never been a 22-year-old actor playing a 16-year-old boy.
Good point. So obviously the main theme of this, putting a love spell on someone, is gross. It's gross. It's a little rapey and gross. It's a lot rapey and gross. But technically, in Winnie's defense, I'm going to defend Winnie. She really is only trying to soften the blow of rejection. She doesn't mean for it to last so long and for it to have the consequences that it does. She said, I don't have the direct quote, but she says something like, I'm just going to make this hurt a little bit less when she says no. So go on to the guest stars, because you see them right straight away. And then
well, the one that excited me the most actually turned out to be the black kid, because it's Alex Desert, who, of course, was on Becker, I think the longest as a regular. But the day before, after I watched this, we were going through Reno 911, and he's on one of those playing straight man. Yeah.
Nice.
So that was cool. But he, of course, was also on The Flash the next year as a regular, and she guest starred. I don't remember if they have any scenes together. They probably don't, because he was the lab tech, and it was, he didn't get to interact with the supervillains. But that was interesting that they were on the show together. But then I also noticed the other guy who plays Chris, his name's Michael Stoyanov. He's on Blossom.
He's the older brother on Blossom, yeah.
The older brother on Blossom was on it. He also was in The Dark Knight. I was not aware of that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. But yeah, so he was on it. So I was like, oh, this is really recognizable people. And then...
the ultimate and the major mullet moment.
The most incredible mullet of the show, possibly ever. Like, it goes halfway down his back, is Seth Green.
Yeah.
And he's the one who screws up the spell, because he's trying to get into his locker and he doesn't know which locker is his. So, or that's the punchline, is he screws up the spell and he was at the wrong locker the entire time. So yeah, I thought that the high school guest star, like supporting cast, was really interesting to see these guys right before they became regulars on something else. And then the main guest stars, on the other hand, one of them, but the girl went on to Days of Our Lives, and maybe I saw her on Days of Our Lives. That would have been the era that my mom watched it in 91.
Yeah, so, I never saw it.
She's not have a very big filmography, actually. She only did this. She guest starred on Growing Pains and Sister Kate opposite Stephanie Beacham.
That name sounds familiar, but I don't recognize it.
And then the Days of Our Lives. But I mean, she wasn't very good. It's a shit part. She's playing the brainwashed bimbo. But, the other guy, though, the football player, he was good in his sincere scene, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, he's playing a big dumb jock, a stereotypical high school big dumb jock. And he, again, he looks like he's about 30, but he's only 19, I think. I looked up a little bit. But one of my favorite scenes was at the beginning, when Winnie shows up at the school and she's in a little cheerleader costume and you don't know that it's her. And the Blossom, the older brother from Blossom, asks her if she wants to play tonsil hockey. And I found that hilarious, because I don't think any teenager has ever actually uttered that phrase in a way that's not humorous. So I thought that was really funny. That was my one sort of antiquated thing. I wish I could integrate that into my regular everyday vocabulary more, but I don't have that opportunity very often.
You see some teenagers and you just yell, "Hey, stop playing tonsil hockey."
Oh man.
No tonsil hockey in here.
Oh man.
You play that tonsil hockey elsewhere.
If I ever see any teens playing tonsil hockey, I will do that.
Good.
For sure.
It's about the only thing in this episode that you could say. It's the least problematic thing you could say to.
Yeah. So I'm also very confused, because there's this very, Dad tries to get it to be a tender moment between him and Rob, but Rob's like, listen, I don't want to have this tender moment. I just want money so I can get a limo to impress this girl. And instead, dad is like, listen, if she's the type of girl who you need a limo to impress, maybe you should reconsider this. So I don't understand why he's trying to impress her. I don't understand why he's in love with her even after having met her. So dad's advice to him is to just be honest. Just be honest. And in my head, I'm like, I don't understand what that means, but hey, it's a sitcom. Let's find out. And in the scene where he's walking up to her and he's nervously trying to ask her out on a date, not realizing that she's had a love spell put on her, he just starts listing a bunch of his faults as if that's the thing that's going to attract her to him, is that he recognizes that he has faults. I don't understand it. I didn't understand it. And then Winnie is like, oh, well, I want him to think that his dad's advice worked. And I was like, what advice? He was just shitting on himself. I don't know. I thought that was weird. I didn't like that.
That's how you pick up women. What are you talking about? Haven't you seen a Kevin Smith movie? What are you talking? You've seen plenty of Kevin Smith movies.
I have.
Yeah, you list your faults, and then
and they bring you lasagna.
It's a grooming technique of a certain type, like a manipulation technique.
I can make him feel better about himself if I just make this lasagna for him every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
37 dicks is what I say. Episode subtitle. Okay. Yeah. So then the boyfriend will show up to confront Rob, and they play it like the boyfriend is that's the thing. When you say the boyfriend's a big dumb jock, Rob's an idiot sexual predator. And the boyfriend might be a dumb jock, but he believes in, good sportsmanship and respecting how his girlfriend feels, which is not anything you see in the regular men of the show.
So what we don't know going into this is that the girl, I wish I could remember her name. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah is the character. Is that her character's name? I don't know.
Carrie, but let's call her Sarah.
Okay, let's call her Sarah. So Sarah had a boyfriend and she dumped him for Rob. So the boyfriend just shows up one day you kind of get the sense early on that he's going to confront him because he's a big tough jock, but he really just wants to congratulate him and wish him well in the relationship and hopes that he treats her well, which is very soft and sweet. And then he cries on Winnie's shoulder. It's kind of adorable, but also it's a big fake blubbery cry, whatever. It's a sitcom.
Right.
But let me tell you this great story about John Lacey. So I don't know why I thought he would be the one to Google, but I just Googled him. And he has been in a million things, like one episode of a million things. And then he had a run on something. I don't remember. That's not important to the story. In 2014, he was playing in a local theater production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof up in Santa Clarita, California. And he was fired from the show because the night before they had a rather rowdy audience. I don't know how much you know about Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, but there's some homoerotic undertones, and one particular group of people in the crowd got a little rowdy and used a homosexual slur toward one of the actors. Not John Lacey, but John Lacey was on stage. And he hopped off the stage and got into a physical altercation with this gentleman. And I don't know if they forced them out, but there were threats of further violence against the cast, against the theater, from this group of rowdy drunks casually using homosexual slurs. And the next day he goes in, I'm getting kind of one-sided because it's from a Hollywood Reporter article that interviewed him, but he said that the theater didn't do a good enough job kind of providing security, providing a safe environment. They let people in too early and plied them with drinks. And so it turned into this rowdy bunch. And he ended up getting fired for his stopping the show to get physical with these people. But I thought that is the type of guy I want to watch in anything that he does. And also he's a director of 2 feature films. I've never heard of them before, but I would seek those out. So John Lacey, good guy. Good dumb jock, good guy. That's my story about John Lacey.
Better than the boys of this episode, because when Winnie tells Rob what she's done, Rob says, I'm fine with a brainwashed girlfriend, and it's not till she becomes too clingy and interferes with his relationship with his bros that he needs to get rid of her, even though the entire school hates him and sister Alyson Hannigan because they're going to lose the game now. And so it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, this is...
Everybody hates him, but it's totally worth it for that big, dumb, brainwashed girlfriend. She's not big. I'm sorry. That dumb, brainwashed girlfriend.
You know who's big, though?
Oprah.
Oprah's big.
I don't even remember how that joke came up. That was so stupid.
He says something like, I'm just going to go home and watch. It's the jock, I think. I think he goes, I'm just going to go home and watch Oprah, I guess, even though she's fat or no, he goes, is it me or is she getting fat again? And I was just like, wow, that's, was Oprah on? She wasn't on ABC.
I don't remember. I don't think so. I think it was CBS, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I think it was syndicated for a while. So yeah, it's not like they were, I imagine that wouldn't have flown through stuff. But yeah, so it's just like, and you talked about this episode before, so I was actually expecting the boys to be like peeping Toms. I didn't actually realize that Rob was going to graduate to full-on non-consensual relations, possibly. It's unclear how sexually active the teen is on this show, but like, he does, the limo thing is like, no, we're going to go get a limo so we can have sex in it. Like,
oh yeah, because they do make a crack. Like, he's like, you're not going to find love in the back of a limo. And then the dad says that. And then he's like, wait a minute, let me rephrase that. I thought that was creepy and gross too.
Parenting from mullet number 1.
I'm glad I'm not a parent because that sounds like something I would say.
Yeah, I don't know what my wrist strength. I think, were they making fun of? I just have that written down. I don't know if they were making fun of girls for not having wrist strength, which is possible.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Okay.
At the end, somebody says, "Oh, Dan Walker, the boyfriend, the big dumb jock, tries to impress his girlfriend by saying, I hit 2 butts with 1 towel."
Yes, towel.
The towel thing.
Yes.
And Winnie asks Rob, like, what does that mean? And he's like, oh, no, girls just don't have the wrist strength for it. So Winnie grabs a towel or manifests a towel with her magic powers and starts whipping him in the butt with it, which is also kind of weird.
Yep. It's a little weird. Also, the wrist strength is an implication of, because they're spanking it so much that
see, I didn't go there for it. I can see that, but my notion was it was just a sexist comment about women just not being strong enough to snap somebody with a towel.
It is, but it's because most women don't get to spank it. Like, yeah, some do, and they have better wrist strength. Like, yeah, what else?
I didn't have anything else on my end.
There was one thing that was Gene feeding people off the floor at one point. Like, I think that was a throwaway thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He's taking home ec.
He
gets to eat his homework
which is better than what I thought he was going to say.
Yeah.
Because I thought he was going to be like, so I can find girls and stalk them like we'll be doing it in 2 episodes.
I do remember that now. And he drops a pancake on the floor or something and picks it up off the floor.
Feeds it to Dad, which is fine. Like, Dad's got it coming.
Yeah.
All right. So are we ready to move on to...
Yeah. So episode 5 is called Guess Who's Staying for Dinner, but you had a better name for it, I thought.
I already forgot what it was.
Okay. I don't remember either. It was hilarious.
Undoubtedly, it referenced the plot line, which is a widow tries to seduce dad, and it's basically, it's a parent trappy type thing where you've got the money, or what do you even call those? Gold diggers.
Yeah.
So you have, and then it seems like she's not a gold digger, that she just thinks dad's hot. But then it turns out she is actually a gold digger because the episode starts with him. Wow, there's some low IMDb scores on these episodes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking at the cast list and I'm just like, wow.
So I've got a little synopsis here. So It starts with Gene recording his daily life on a giant camcorder for his friends back in New York. And you discover that Thomas, the father, is working on distributing the estate of a very wealthy client who's recently passed away. And the sexy young widow comes a courting. And I expected there to be jealousy between her and Winnie, but it turns into something kind of different. So what are your top 3 things for this one?
Cute dog. We can do that. Both sides ism. And I don't know. Okay, so my third point is either going to be yay a Mr. Belvedere reference or boobies, because apparently that's right, boobies do. It's another one of those, once you put boobies out in front of men, they can't hold it together.
I mean, I know that for sure.
So those are my 3.5.
So I've got kind of country life versus city life. I've got lip syncing. And I've got fingers. They bring back the fingers magic. I don't know if you noticed.
I did not actually notice that.
Oh, and I guess let's take fingers magic out and let's put truth soup.
Truth soup.
Truth soup.
There's some stuff to discuss with truth soup.
Yeah.
Truth soup / upscale. So the video camera thing is, I mean, it must have been sort of a trope by then, because video cameras had been around long enough that it would just be a thing. A character gets a video camera, and what wacky things are they going to do with it? Jesse doesn't really get to go on camera because nobody cares about. None of the friends back home care about Jesse, but Rob does one. Oh, wait, they do. There is the implication Jean films her changing so his friends can see that her boobies are coming in, but that's not the boobies we'll be talking about. Yeah. There's that. So there's that like little pervert tween boy.
So with that though, it's hilarious because he goes up the stairs and you don't see him, but you hear him say, didn't I tell you Jessie was developing? And then Jessie, in a robe with, the towel on her head, comes chasing Jean down the stairs going, you little pornographer. I thought that was great. Little 13-year-old Jessie chasing him down the stairs, calling him a pornographer. So a little recognition that he's being pervy is good.
Not something you're going to see on ABC in a few years. But then there's also Rob does a video where I don't remember. My note's just sexual predator Rob. That's basically the only note for Rob.
The first thing with Rob that I have is sort of the country life versus city life, where Rob talks about, what does he say? Putting his street moves on these country girls. And of course, you and I and any viewers know that he's actually not having great success with the country girls. But he thinks he's smooth as silk and he ain't. So I also I also think it's interesting that he's kind of shitting on living in Connecticut. I mean, he's trying to impress his friends back in New York, right? But he lives in a giant house and he goes to a pretty nice school. I don't know. Screw him. That being said, I love living in the city, so I'm not going to complain.
It's almost like they're a bunch of entitled little white shits, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But then the main plot is actually that this widow, played by Terry Austin, whose name she seemed familiar, but she guest starred on like every TV show, so I've seen her on something for sure. She becomes suspicious of Winnie because she started as a housekeeper too, and that's how she got her man. And so she knows what Winnie's up to, and so she's pretty quickly able to turn Dad Thomas against Winnie, or make him suspicious of her,
like too quickly,
especially since he apparently does not want to hook up and she wants to hook up, and he's like oblivious to that, because that's what's funny is Dad's being oblivious until the boobies come out. But there's, some, I think the both sides thing is Winnie and Dad talking at some point where, it's so the widow runs a background check. Oh, the cute dog. Let's get that over with. So there's a dog that has the same name as the husband, and so whenever she talks about the husband, the dog like goes Rawr! And you're like, oh, well, I mean, it's a cute dog. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's fine. And it's some of the better. It's some of the better jokes. But then she runs a check on Winnie, and one of the things is that Winnie didn't vote in the last election. And Dad's like, well, did you see who was running? And I was like, 1988. Wasn't that Bush and was it Dukakis?
Dukakis, yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, Dukakis. Oh yeah, he wasn't a fucking piece of shit war criminal, but Bush was, and we do that. So yeah, both sides, right? Like, it just brought back the memories of, when sitcoms would acknowledge politics existed instead of not acknowledging they exist and just sort of being, capitalistically progressive in that, like, we want everybody to be able to watch our show. But this was still in the age of you had to shit on both sides in order to appeal to the flyover states. So cool thing. And it sets Dad off on this thing where he's going to look into Winnie's background, because it turns out he didn't do that.
Yeah.
When he hired her.
So it also sets up this idea that maybe Mrs. Simpson, the widow Simpson, is jealous of Winnie, or she's trying to get Winnie out of the way. So, you start questioning her intentions. And of course, the simplest answer has got to be the right one, that she wants Winnie out of the way because she wants Thomas to herself. Now, there's some other things that happen that kind of back up that notion. She tries to get rid of Jesse. Remember, she tries to suggest Jesse go away to some private school, and she starts naming places where there are great private schools, and she settles on Switzerland or something. And Jesse's response, I think, is great, is there's so much of this country I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
But I found it interesting that it sets up this idea that she's trying to marry Thomas and get rid of the kids, get rid of the housekeeper, when in actuality, in the end, that's not the case at all. I found it really odd that they did all of this work to set up this notion that is, again, the simplest thing, the easiest thing to extend your imagination to, and then it's totally not that. I thought that was really weird, but we can get to the actual truth when we get to the truth soup, which is also a very simple explanation, but not bolstered by all of this background.
Yeah. It's a long ass con. Like, it makes no sense.
It made no sense to me. So this gets to the lip sync though. So Thomas decides he's going to call Winnie's references. And Winnie needs to make it clear that nobody's coming into the kitchen. So Dad is on one phone, maybe his office phone. Maybe that's got a different line back when there were house phones.
No, he's upstairs in her bedroom because he was snooping in her bedroom. And she came in and was like, dude, you want to call my references? Use this, very clear office looking, cheap office rotary dial phone up here.
Okay.
And call my references.
So, but she answers the phone downstairs in the kitchen. Maybe it's a different phone that she has. I don't remember how that works.
She manifests a switchboard.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. And she puts on, so she's obviously, Corinne is lip syncing to spoken word of some, seeming like country farm older gentleman who uses lots of folksy words. I thought that was so stupidly funny.
Yep.
I loved it so much because her face changed while she was talking, and she had to keep moving her head kind of along with the dialogue. I put in all this effort to make her voice change to sound like an older gentleman with a Southern accent. And I thought that was just hysterical. It was great physical comedy on her part. And she didn't quite get the lip sync like 100%, but it was pretty good.
Yeah. That's one of the weird things about the show is it doesn't spotlight her as much as it should, but also B, as much as you think it would. Yeah. Like it really is a family sitcom where, the mom / housekeeper just happens to be a witch. Like,
yeah,
it does not come up as much as it seems like it would now. But yeah, so she convinces him that she's a good employee. It's funny because it creates this backstory for Winnie that like she worked on a fucking ranch. Like, cool.
She was a housekeeper in their house, I guess. I mean, they have houses too. I don't think she was supposed to be a farmhand. I think she was, a housekeeper. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, didn't you ever watch, what was that Nickelodeon show about the ranch?
Hey Dude.
Or whatever. Hey Dude. Right?
I mean, I watched it when I was like a baby.
Don't be sexist. Like, women can be ranch hands too, dude. Like,
I'm not being sexist. I think the dialogue set up that she was a housekeeper in their house.
Okay. But, well, I don't know what it would take to get us to do a podcast where we look at the scripts for Free Spirit. But
yeah, I haven't been typing out all of the dialogue.
So speaking of the dialogue, the Mr. Belvedere reference comes up because then we get back to the widow confronting Winnie about how she wants to get rid of her and get Thomas a housekeeper who looks like Mr. Belvedere. And I'm just like, wow, Mr. Belvedere references. Like, it was already, because I just remember on the sitcom Ned and Stacy, which I need to watch again. That was a whole subplot, was that the guy loved Mr. Belvedere and everybody else is like, dude, Mr. Belvedere sucked. That show sucked. And I'm just like, was it? Yeah, I'm looking at your face. I know. I don't remember Mr. Belvedere sucking, but it's like.
I watched it as a kid and I liked it. I mean, I know that I was a kid, but it has one of the all-time great theme songs. Whatever.
It does. Okay, so there's the Mr. Belvedere reference, and then then they're going to have a date night, and Winnie's going to cook for them. And what does she cook for them?
Truth soup.
What's up? And that's when Terry Austin actually gets to be good, is when she's like, oh man, you're so boring. I just want to hook up with you. So like, since you're the executor of the estate, I can get some money.
Yeah.
And Dad's like, I think you should leave. And she's like, God, I can't wait to get out of here.
Yeah. Like, yeah. She drops her kind of snooty demeanor, her sort of upper class. You have to be polite to people, even if you're being, and she just rips into him. But her the revelation, I guess, that Thomas is having, that she's just using him to get more money from the estate, again, goes counter to the entire plot before that.
So much work she put in to get rid of his family just to, she just was being shitty. But I mean, that kind of makes sense. Like, I'm sure, well, no, because her backstory is she was a housekeeper who then, there's not a lot of, I'm not sure, because then Thomas says she's well educated, but I mean, I guess she could have been like a Vassar educated person who then became a house sitter so she could gold dig. I mean, that's not impossible. Yeah. I'd watch that show.
I'd watch that show.
Right. Like, it's a true crime show.
Yeah.
But then Thomas is going to eat some of the truth soup. Did you want to say, we skipped over boobies, which is just that the widow is wearing something low cut and Thomas just can't handle the vavoom of it. He's just like, wow.
Well, somebody spills something on her, right? Wine. Does Winnie spill wine on her or force her to spill wine with her magic? And so
something like that.
And so she takes off her top layer, I don't know, blazer, a sweater, I don't know. And then she reveals, it's not super revealing by today's standards, but it's a low cut, no sleeve silk blouse. And it's wet now. Ooh, titillating.
And isn't Rob looking in from the other? Yes. And Rob's looking in from the kitchen. They're like, how's it going? Rob's like, Dad's doing great. And it's just like, yeah, because Rob doesn't know that they're trying to get rid of her. Like, there's a cut scene where she does a stepmom seduction on Rob, probably.
And he's for it all the way.
Totally, 100%. Like, he's going to kill his dad and marry his stepmom. Like, that's how the show ends.
Before we get on to Thomas having the truth soup thing is also a little bit rapey. I mean, it's not for the intention of seducing somebody, but it is sort of unwittingly giving somebody something that's going to change their behavior.
Yes. Also, the other thing with it is Winnie can't use her magic to make that. It's a manual recipe that she needs help with.
Right. I forgot about that, but you never actually see what it is.
Right. But yeah, the kids or Jesse and
Jean.
I want to call him Egon. Jesse and Jean have to help cook the soup, which is okay. So are we ready to talk about the denouement of truth soup?
Go for it.
So basically, Thomas, after the widow leaves in a huff, Thomas is in the kitchen eating truth soup, and Winnie comes in, and they have one of their, did they have a romance arc going, where Thomas opines that maybe he doesn't need an upscale, classy woman. Maybe he needs,
somebody who's down to earth, which is
low class, like Winnie.
Yeah. Somebody who's a little bit more down to earth. And then what does Winnie do?
She has some truth soup and tells him she's a witch.
Yeah.
Or does she even have this truth soup?
She didn't have the truth soup. She knows that so this is coming to
this actually, is rapey part 2. Yeah.
There's another part. There's another part. So she knows that he's not going to remember anything the next day. So she admits that she's a witch. Super cool. But my question for the story, that widow who just left is going to forget everything that happened. Is she going to come back trying to seduce Thomas again? We don't know. You would assume you would assume that she would, because she doesn't remember trashing him.
Free Spirit does not have a very good show Bible. Throwing Rob saying he's got no love problems, when that'll come up in the next one too. But and then she tells Thomas she's a witch, and they share a kitchen sitcom moment, and it'll all be reset by next time.
And then cue the music. Do 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 do. Yeah.
All right. So Halloween.
Halloween. I have a lot of good things to say about this. Let me give the synopsis first, and then we can. Okay. So there's a group of popular girls in the school called the Debs. And Jessie is in the running to become a part of this group. And the group has to vote on the members. And she decides to have a Halloween party. And Winnie, despite hating Halloween, because it's a stereotype of witches, I'm sure, and there's a bunch of spookiness and dumb costumes and stuff, she just hates it. But Winnie says she's going to help. So in doing that, she comes up with a magic show. Because she's a witch, she can actually do magic to impress the Debs to get Jessie in the group. But it goes wrong because that's the nature of the show. And Jessie goes invisible for longer than desired and overhears why the Debs would actually want her as part of the group and what they actually think of her. So my three things are costumes, Alyson Hannigan, and the tender moments. The tender moments I want to talk about too.
Okay. So then I'm going to take ball sack. I'm going to take.
That goes along with my costumes.
Oh, okay. You're covering that in there too? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll still take that.
Yeah.
And then I'll take, okay, fine. I'll take, I'll change my ball sack to, is it blackface? Stalking. And then, what do we want to do? Braces, fat jokes, and vague transphobia? Like, I mean, so we can sum up the final act. So yes. And then guest stars, because we do need to talk about a couple of the Debs are very, have gone on to become very, well, I think at the time they were just about to become recognizable guest stars. Though one of them actually was way too good for Free Spirit, given what she had been in. But so we'll do that too.
Okay. So I wanted to start off by talking about Alyson Hannigan. This is her first episode where she's sort of the main person. I mean, she gets more lines than even Winnie, I think. And I had kind of crapped on her last time because she was kid acting, but it worked really well with this episode. And I thought she shone in this. There was a lot of emotional up and down, and she did the weird miming thing with her dad when he was like doing the dance and she was invisible. So it was sort of like a, Groucho, Harpo sort of doing the same thing at the same time, which was really funny. And her tender moments were actual tender moments. And I don't know if that's because she's a girl. And so it's expected that they have the tender moments, and it's expected for her to cry, and it's okay for all of this stuff to be happening. But I thought it was really good. And Dad interacting with her, I thought was so great. I thought it was really good. I loved that about.
Well, and so let's actually kind of get to that first then. So her conflict is that the Debs want her there because she's got a nice house for parties. And they all think Rob is hot. And I'm like, you're not going to think he's hot when he's fucking molesting you next week, but okay.
I'll have to send you a Guardian article. We'll talk about that later.
Comes a fucking cult leader is where Rob ends up. But her conversation with Dad is she brings up those points and she's like, but do I want to still be in the Debs? And he's like talking to her about how she's got to think these things through, whether or not like you want to be friends with people who are like knowingly, do that. And so I was actually surprised when she's like, all right, let's be a Deb. And I mean, she backs out because they go a couple bridges too far. But yeah, she has like an actual character arc, which.
Yeah. And the dad, I loved the conversation they had when she was like, why can't you just make this better? Why can't you just click your fingers and make it better? And Thomas says, I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to like kiss your boo-boo and make it go away. But now you're a grown up she's not a grown up, but now you're older and you have to logic this out yourself.
Yeah. That was that. And I mean, the show hasn't, if they've done like character arcs before, it has just been about like Gene playing sports or something, or Rob trying to rape somebody. So this was like the first time that it really was an actual like sincere growing pains moment, not growing pains the sitcom, but like growing up moment where you're finding out that kind of sucks. It sucks having to make decisions for yourself, right? So yeah, that was cool. I like that. But then, what were your other points? Costumes. Do you want to do? We'll lead into Halloween. Yes.
So because it's Halloween, there are costume parties to attend, things happening. I don't remember what Alyson Hannigan's costume was, but
vague princess.
Okay.
Like party princess, yeah.
Winnie was dressed up like a magician, which was cute. Dad had two costumes. We'll talk about the ball sack, or the giant turd, as they refer to it in the show, which ends up being, what does he call it? A dancing raisin, a California raisin, essentially.
Which is where you're like, is this or is this not actually black? It seems kind of...
He doesn't actually have paint on his face. He does
not have paint on his face, but he is...
He's wearing a costume that's supposed to be a raisin, but it's brown. Yeah. And raisins are purple, a dark purple. But
and then he wears a yellow Donald Duck costume. Like they were scared of, pissing off Disney, which is hilarious. Like this must have been on the table when, ABC was getting bought out. They're like, you can finally use Donald Duck in Free Spirit or something.
So what I loved about the costumes is that particularly Thomas, the father, isn't afraid to be silly. So whether it's a turd, whether it's a ball sack, whether it's a California raisin, he's not afraid to look silly. And I just think there's not enough of that nowadays. People wearing dumb costumes, like silly costumes.
For his work party, which I sort of missed. I missed that initially. I was like, oh, he's just dressing up for Jesse's party, because why the fuck wouldn't he hang out when his kid was having a party? Like, wouldn't that be okay? That's
what you've got a housekeeper for, duh.
Silly me. But no, then he's got a work party that he's going to, which, he just this absurd costume. So it's kind of funny. Gene goes as we'll get into stalking now, because it naturally goes from Gene's kind of shitty dinosaur costume. I mean, it's fine. Like
it looked like a costume for like a 6-year-old.
Yeah. It's like
it was cute. It was cute costume, but he was like, if he's 10, I don't know.
Yeah. Especially because they established like latex horror masks earlier, that he then does a little dinosaur costume. He wants Rob to take him trick-or-treating, and Rob's like, no, I'm not going trick-or-treating. That's dumb. And Gene's like, but I made a list of all the cheerleaders' houses and all the girls in whatever club. And Rob's like, hell yeah, let's go.
So Gene is being resourceful. He wants to go trick-or-treating. He knows how to get his brother involved. It's creepy and stalkery, but he knows what to do to get his bag of candy.
Which he then, why does he have money at the end?
Because people used to put money. You never got money?
No.
I'd get like
money on
like a quarter here, a quarter there, a penny sometimes. I mean, people
really.
I grew up in a poor place. This is Connecticut. I don't know who's giving out quarters in Connecticut.
They be giving out like full candy bars and like rolls, like what the fuck?
King size Snickers, baby. That's what I'm expecting.
So okay, I thought that meant he was selling candy, but okay.
No.
So yeah, at the end of the episode, they're going to go over their haul, and it's a tender brother moment where Gene looks at his candy and his money, and Rob goes over the girls' phone numbers he got, and he throws out the ones with braces are the ones that have put on weight because he's a piece of shit.
I had that written down and I forgot what it meant. I had it written down like something like, oh, she's ballooned. And it was like, ew, what a pig.
Yep. Speaking of dudes being pigs, let's back up to so Winnie's only like sort of subplot before she like is just in support of Alyson Hannigan, because Alyson Hannigan gets turned invisible and they've got to like turn her back invisible, and it's, you know, that's like the mid episode thing. But before that, she's just upset because, you know, Halloween's in and making fun of witches. And Dad says something like, if I ever see a good looking witch, I'll eat her broom. And like, there is no, like, I don't think there's any sexual connotation to it, but I'm just like, I have it written down and I'm just like, there's a very hard way to write that down. Like, how do you look at that? My note is good looking witch, I'll eat her broom. There's no real way to look at that and not be like, okay, that's...
Next week's assignment, besides watching the episodes, is come up with some kind of sex act that's eating a witch's broom.
Brooms do come back later because
yes.
They're gonna invisible fly and really stretch the budget. And Thomas sees the brooms at the end of the episode, and oh my goodness, how could there be brooms? What that it's so.
Yeah. Winnie and Jesse come back in after having flown around. They turn themselves invisible. Their hair's all messed up, which I think is hilarious. And yeah, Thomas leaves and sees their brooms.
I mean, I think we said earlier on that the Jesse and Winnie bonding was like one of the more the areas where the show actually had potential, and like, so it's cool that a Jessie episode pays off, because I mean the show really kind of treats her like shit. She is the butt of the boys' jokes most of the time.
Yeah,
like that's all she's got to do is have Rob make fun of her or Gene film her changing or something. But
and this has been my favorite episode so far. I laughed a lot. I thought Alyson Hannigan was great. And I liked that the boys were kind of in the background after 5 episodes, right?
Yeah. This is the Dan Florek. Definitely.
Yeah. He was really good.
So the guest stars, we can't miss the guest stars. Okay. So one of the guest stars who I recognized but didn't know who it was is Jenny Lewis.
Yeah.
Who of course has a band now and was in The Wizard and like was a trendy early aughts hipster type thing.
Yeah.
And this is actually the same year as The Wizard. So I assume that means that, it aired in October. So she was a movie star doing TV. But the real movie star doing TV is Maya Bruton, who played in Parker Lewis Can't Lose as the precocious little sister. But at this point, she would have been better known for Adventures in Babysitting. She's the Thor-obsessed kid. And it's like, right. And it's like, that's right. Adventures in Babysitting, despite being exceptionally popular with anyone between the ages of, 10 and 17, did not like have much cachet in Hollywood, I guess, because she's not the lead girl. She's just like, she's got a couple of lines, but she's like definitely or not top tier dab. And then Jenny Lewis is the chief dab, and we find out that she picks all the clothes out and she determines what all the girls have to do. And
so go ahead.
I was going to say that is actually also mature, that the friend ditches Jesse for the Debs, and they're like, we're going to still try to be friends. I hope we can do it. Like, there's not a happy ending to this. Like, Rob gets rid of his clingy girlfriend or whatever.
No.
Like, there's character work here, is what I'm saying.
So I've been a 13-year-old girl. And I don't remember. I do remember there was a clique of the popular girls. They didn't have a name. They didn't have special jackets that they wore. It's not freaking Grease, the Pink Ladies or anything. But there were only like 4 of them. And I had a group of, I don't know, like I wouldn't call us outcasts or anything, but there were probably at 13, how old was I? Like 7th or 8th grade. There were probably like 15 of us. I think I would much rather go with my group of friends who didn't all look identical, who didn't all do their hair the same, who didn't all wear the same clothes. While I understand the social pressure, like if you have a group of friends and you're 13, you don't necessarily want to be a part of the popular group because you see that they treat you like shit and they treat everybody else like shit and they treat each other like shit.
And that's basically all they're doing.
Yeah.
Like when they say, what are the Debs for? It is just being shitty.
Yeah.
Like, because they're still tweens basically. So they're not like after the boys yet.
Yeah. It's really just being mean and setting yourself up as better than everybody, even though everybody hates you because you're a bad word, because you're shitty.
So yeah, there was a movie called Debs that was not about this. It's not a Free Spirit spinoff, but that stood for something else. That's in the Debs movie from 2004. That stood for Discipline, Energy, Beauty, and Strength. So, but I assume
that sounds way better than the Debs group in this episode.
I mean, I think this is just like debutante shortened, right?
Oh, yeah, maybe, yeah. Because I was wondering, Chris is Jenny Lewis, the president for life of the Debs. Why wasn't it called the Chris's? Why was it called the Debs? But that makes sense, that it's short for debutantes.
But then also, when I Googled it, I was unaware of this. A school's Debs, also called grad or grads, is a formal ball for students in their final year of secondary school in the Republic of Ireland, analogous to the prom in North America or the school formal in Australia. Isn't it? So, I mean, it's like, this is a weird episode that other than the pervy brothers, because Gene's enabling, Gene's an accomplice to stalking,
to creeping.
And then I thought the costumes were funny, but I thought that, Frank Luz is not a great comic actor. Like,
no, but he killed it with timing. I mean, he was wearing that dumb duck costume, right? And he's having the tender moment with Jesse, and he says something like, "Why would you take advice from a man in a duck costume?" And he kind of like forgot for a second that he was wearing this stupid costume. Yeah. He's like, "Oh God, I look like an idiot, even though I'm doing this." It was so funny.
Yeah, I feel like that worked in his favor, but with the ball sack one, like the real punchline for that is when they come out and one of the Debs is like, "I have a rabbit," and that's what he's dressed as. Like, because the joke is he's dressed as a rabbit turd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like, and that's rough because sitcom dadding isn't actually as easy as one would like. We only remember X amount of sitcom dads for actually being good. So it's not actually that easy. But he does a lot better with the drama than he did with the comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the most successful episode. But again, oddly, very little to showcase Winnie.
Yeah.
Like, even with the magic, yes, she's dressed as a magician, but she's dressed as a leggy magician.
Leggy one. Leggy. I took a little snap and sent it to my husband.
There are no close-ups of her when she's in her magician's outfit. It's all long shots.
It's all legs. All you can see.
So, but yeah, and I was actually not paying enough attention at the beginning of the Jesse and Dad scene. And I was like, how the fuck can he see her? And I was like, oh, because all of a sudden Winnie, who couldn't change her back into being fully visible because too many people are fucking around trying to do magic on Halloween, and it clogs the magic pipes, which is part of the free spirit continuity here, or world building. She just like teleports in, fixes it, and teleports out. And I was like,
just in the nick of time. Just in the nick of time.
And I was like, if you had this power, you could do all the other episodes would be different if you could just teleport around.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they don't keep up with is Rob makes a comment that no girl has ever dumped him.
And then
we just watched his ass get dumped 2 episodes ago, right? So, again, but yes.
He's a 16-year-old braggadocious teenager, right? He's got to look cool at all costs.
So Paul Scherer runs a realty company in Indianapolis now. Oh. And his number's on the internet. I'm just like, could we call him up and ask him if he wants to do an interview, how he felt about playing this guy? But the fear is he'd be like, that guy was fucking great.
The fear is that he'd just be like, what am I supposed to do? I was a teenager. I mean, how old was he?
That's better. He was 20. I think he was early 20. That's better than if he was like, no, that guy was cool.
The thing about the whole thing is that this isn't uncommon in 80s sitcoms. You see this now, I'm sure. I mean, it's not something that I don't watch sitcoms, so I have no idea.
I feel like teen sitcoms now are all Disney Channel, where they would never be this creepy because somebody would take notice.
Fair
right?
Enough. Fair enough.
But this is like nighttime 1989 sitcom where, we talked about it last time. It was on the same night as Just the 10 of Us, which is about, 40-year-old men wanting to sleep with high school girls. It's fucking creep. So.
And we're watching, this is not a teen show, but we're watching Night Court. And we're always shock, look at each other, go back to watching at the jokes that they get away with on that. And that's not for teenagers, obviously. So it's more, but it's spooky. So we're 87, I think, is where we are on Night Court. And it is shocking what people get away with. And that's NBC, right?
Yeah.
It's shocking the jokes that they got away with. The sexism, transphobia, homophobia to a certain extent. Yeah, homophobia for sure from Dan. Yeah. And just poor Marky Post, whatever your feelings are aside, just keeps getting
to put me on the spot. Because she gives a terrible, awful performance doesn't mean it's okay that her character is just there to be sexually harassed, molested,
constantly.
That's what her point on the show is. That is her role on that show, and to talk about how much she loves Princess Diana. Those are the two things she does.
Whatever.
That's it.
Are we gonna have a Night Court podcast?
Oh my God. That's a lot of Night Court to go through.
That's a lot of Night Court. But yeah, so I guess it is fairly typical of 80s sitcoms for this type of material to be going through. And so contacting Paul Scherer now, he might just be like, I didn't see what the problem was because I was seeing it on TV. I continued to see it on TV for a while.
Until 2014, probably. I don't know.
I don't know. It's disappointing, but it's not. I don't think it would be. I don't think he would think anything of it, and especially now that he's not an actor, he'd be like, "Screw you, I don't care."
And also, this show is not in wide distribution, right. So it's not like it's a beloved former sitcom. It is, the 80s are a fucking shit show, and
yes.
So. There is that, but it is nice that they were able to turn. All right, let's try to give you some useful material. It is, like I said, it is very nice that they were able that they not just were able to sort of turn it around with Alyson Hannigan, but that they did, because it certainly seemed like they could. The potential was there from before, but this is the first time that we've really seen them do something with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked that it was heavy on Alyson Hannigan. I thought she did great. I thought she carried it. I thought she did fantastic. So
yeah, I mean, her character's not one note, and the boys are pretty one note. Like, so's Dad, but
yeah. and so is Winnie, unfortunately. I mean, she's quirky and she's funny and she's got the magical powers that sort of push the show forward, push the narrative forward. But I mean, Alyson Hannigan's really the only one that has that character arc. Winnie's just a witch. She's always been a witch. This is just what she does.
Yep.
So good for Alyson. Way to go.
Anything else?
That's it. That's all I have.
Let's introduce this as a preview for next time. Our titles for next time are Two for the Road, and I'll read the synopsis from IMDb.
Okay.
Dad buys a car for Winnie and Rob to share, but Winnie ends up hogging it. Prediction: buying clothes and getting her hair done. Because she's a girl. Not with my sister, you don't. Wow, okay. Hold on. I'm going to look at you while I read this so I can see your expression. While Jesse goes out with an older boy, Jean and Rob trick Winnie into taking them to an X-rated movie.
No way. It doesn't say that on Wikipedia.
It says that on IMDb.
Oh, okay. No. Oh, no.
Followed by Love That Winnie. Winnie has fantasies of life being like it is on the Donna Reed show. However, she comes to the realization that life's not that chipper when Jean breaks his father's prized watch, and she reluctantly agrees to fix it. Okay, that seems like an exaggeration of life not being chipper. Also, that's WandaVision, but interesting. Okay, so that's next week, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Nobody could hear you jazz handing. You have to say goodbye.
Goodbye.